The sun was barely rising, spilling a thin golden light over the cracked asphalt. Sweat dripped from her brow, soaking the straps of the pack that seemed to weigh her down like a small boulder. Around her, the group groaned with effort, every footstep a battle against exhaustion. She could feel the judging eyes, the unspoken impatience, the subtle mutters about how someone should carry less, how someone should slow down. And yet somehow she moved forward, faster, stronger. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from. I love knowing who's listening. Her name was Mara, and she wasn't built for sympathy. She didn't ask for help. She didn't beg. Every ounce of extra weight the packs, the gear, the morale of the group she'd quietly shouldered was hers, and she bore it without complaint. The others hadn't meant to burden her. At first it had seemed a simple courtesy, a way to balance the load. But Mara knew the truth in a heartbeat. This wasn't just a pack. It was a test. Tests revealed character. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and the faint temps of metal from the nearby training grounds. Each inhale reminded her of how far she'd come, how much farther she had to go. Her legs burned with every step. Her lungs screamed. She thought about stopping. Everyone would understand. No one would judge. But then, a memory flickered, a promise made to herself long ago, in a different kind of struggle. And with it, a stubborn spark reignited. She wouldn't slow down, not today. Round her the others began to falter. Axe slipped from shoulders, boots dragged through dirt, murmurs of frustration and fatigue filling the air. A few even stopped entirely, leaning heavily on each other, trying to catch their breath. Mara noticed the small things. The way one soldier's hands trembled as he adjusted his straps. The way another's eyes darted to the ground as if the horizon itself had betrayed him. Still she moved. She thought she was invisible. She thought no one would notice, but they did. It started as a whisper. How is she doing that? Then grew, echoing across the line. Eyes widened, jaws dropped. And then, as if in slow motion, a collective realization swept through them. She was the only one not slowing down. The air grew thicker, heavy with dust, kicked up by pounding boots. Mara could feel it settling on her skin, mingling with sweat, stinging her eyes. Her shoulders ached, her spine ached. And yet she pressed on, each step a quiet defiance against doubt, fatigue, and the low. Insidious voice in her own head that whispered she was alone. Mind flashed back to the mornings she'd spent running through empty fields, when her only companion was the wind, and the sun, and the only reward was the knowledge that she could endure. She had trained her body for moments like this. Yes, but more than that, she had trained her mind. To push, to resist, to rise when the world expected her to fall. Then came the moment when everything almost broke. Sudden incline, steeper than any she had anticipated, forced a stumble. Mara's hands trembled as she gripped her pack straps, the ground threatening to claim her. For a fleeting second, fear washed over her. She thought she might collapse. But then, a voice rang out not from within her, but from the group behind her. Go on, Mara. Don't stop. It wasn't pity. It wasn't judgment. It was awe, recognition. That single encouragement, almost lost to the wind, reignited her resolve. She straightened. She breathed. She moved like a tide reclaiming the shore, unstoppable, relentless. Around her, the group scrambled to keep pace, but it was futile. Every glance backward confirmed it. She was beyond their reach, not because she carried less, but because she carried more, not just weight, but heart, determination, and a quiet courage they hadn't seen before. When the incline finally leveled, the world seemed to pause. Dust hung in the sunlight. Trees swayed gently, indifferent yet magnificent. And then the murmurs became applause. It's not loud, not boisterous, but a steady, reverent acknowledgement. They had underestimated her. They had assumed her limits. They'd assumed wrong. Mara, exhausted and grimy, allowed herself a small, victorious smile. She hadn't carried herself alone. She had carried all the lessons, the pain, the persistence of those who came before her. And there was a moral to it. She realized, not just about strength, but about expectations, about judgment, about how often the world misreads the quiet ones, the patient ones, the ones who appear burdened yet unbroken. It was a lesson in empathy, in humility, and in the simple, radical act of perseverance. Because when the others finally reached the top, faces flushed, breaths heaving, they understood something essential. Strength wasn't always visible in size, speed, or noise. Sometimes strength was the quiet heartbeat behind every step, the invisible fire that refused to die even when the world seemed determined to snuff it out. Mara set down her pack and looked out over the horizon. The first full light of morning illuminating the sweat, the dirt, the struggle, and the triumph. She didn't need applause. She didn't need recognition. And yet as the group gathered, still catching their breath, their eyes full of newfound respect, she felt it anyway. The world had noticed. Because kindness doesn't vanish, it waits, and it finds its way back. And as the wind brushed across her face, carrying dust and sunlight together, Mara reflected on every step that had brought her here. Every burden carried, every doubt faced, every whisper ignored, every moment had been worth it. And so, she moved forward again, not because she had to, but because she could. If Mara's story inspired you, tell me in the comments which moment gave you chills. And don't forget to subscribe to Whispered Words for more stories that prove courage and perseverance are always worth the wait.